Welcome to the Enlightened Misfits podcast, a space for spiritual entrepreneurs who refuse to settle for anything less than their purpose. I am your host, Lauren Perlingi. After surviving a near-death experience and being declared gone for 3 minutes, I woke up with a mission to help women turn self-sabotage into self-compassion and fear into fuel. Here, we're going to dive into raw conversations, practical tools, and inspiring stories designed to help you break free from old patterns, claim your voice, and build a business that lights up your soul. If you've ever felt like you don't fit the mold, you're in the right place. This is where misfits rise into their power. Welcome back to another episode on the Enlightened Misfits podcast. I am your host, Lauren Perlingi, an intuitive human design business guide, trauma-informed healer, and the founder of The Mermaid Light. This podcast is all for the visionaries, the cycle breakers, and the spiritual entrepreneurs who they are here to do life and business differently. So here on the Enlightened Misfits, we talk about human design, nervous system healing, spirituality, entrepreneurship, and what it is really meant to step into your soul's calling, or some people call it their soul's purpose, and build a life aligned with who you truly are. Today, I am so excited to welcome our guest, Kathryn. Kathryn, I'm really excited to have you here with us. So start us out with who you are, kind of introduce yourself to our listeners that may or may not know you. You never know who's listening. And share a little bit about your journey and what led you to the work that you do today.
Sure. First, thank you so much, Lauren, for having me on your podcast. I'm really excited to be here because I resonate so much with your mission and what you do with your business and through this podcast. Because similarly, I used to work in a corporate entertainment as a project manager, and through that, it just led me down the path of realizing that I am not built for the corporate business world. I'm not meant to play the game the way it's designed. So after years of working in the entertainment industry, I broke down. I had some, addictions built up on alcohol and cannabis. I had my wake up moment, was able to leave the industry. I got back into doing yoga and meditation, and that helped me let go of my addictions. So in the process of doing that, I really rebuilt myself, and I created my own emotional and nervous system regulation method called the neuroresonance method. And that is a trauma-informed, integrative healing approach designed to help shift unhelpful behaviors and release stored emotional energy to create lasting change through embodied and soulful transformations. So for me, I'm an emotional support strategist, a Reiki master, sound therapist, yoga, meditation, and guide. And in addition to finding my own method, I also have my own business called Eipl Healing, which stands for Every Individual Person is Love Healing. And that's a little bit about me, my story in a nutshell.
I love that you created your own method. I created my own method too, it's the 90-second method, and I feel like it's intertwines a lot of like nervous system, energetics, and also like emotional because there's always different methods, and
Right.
like, or there's different things, and I think it's really like hearing your method, which we're going to go a little bit deeper into that. But I feel like, us entrepreneurs that have gone through different, maybe very similar experiences, or like very different, obviously, because we're different people, we have different
Mm-hmm.
things that we have to kind of journey through. I think it's really powerful when somebody creates their own method, because, and like coming from that place of like being a cycle breaker, or, maybe a visionary or like a spiritual entrepreneur, because it's like, it's not just a generic, like, here it's like you can fit into this box and use it. It's like anybody can use
Yes.
it. And like I think that's what's really powerful. When I started talking about mine, mine's a little bit newer this year that I've started to publicly talk about it, but literally anybody could use it. And I think that it seems like for you, obviously I want to know a little bit more about it, but when you developed this the neuroresonance method, like what did you like? how did it kind of start? Like, where did you feel like this, like, the world needs this? Like, what kind of, you know, guided you to create this method, and like, how is it different than other modalities out there, like altogether?
Well, I was guided through my own process because, as I had stated, I got into a dark place when I was working in entertainment towards the end of that career
Mhm.
because, when you put your heart and soul into something and then you start to realize, oh, I'm not getting any fulfillment from this. I just feel depleted. I feel drained. I feel jaded. It's kind of a hard pill to swallow, especially if you've worked your life going down that trajectory. So once I got there, I was battling a lot of feelings of feeling like a failure, feeling like I had wasted a big part of my life, not wanting to accept that it was just time to walk away. So I stayed in it longer. I started going to therapy, and when I was in therapy, I found that I was getting more annoyed, more agitated. It didn't feel like the therapists be were actually listening to me. They didn't want to talk about the things I would come in with. I would mention something offhand as like an anecdote in a story, and they would fixate on little things. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about what happened to me in high school. I'm just giving you background for like that feeling. So can we talk about present day and this feeling again?
Right.
And I would be reliving old moments from my life, and I would go and sit in my car afterward. I'm like, how is therapy making me feel more angry? Like, isn't shouldn't I be feeling better with this? So I was just baffled at a certain point because I'm like, everybody is saying how great their therapist is, how much they love therapy. And here I am having the opposite effect. So I started digging. I have a background in psychology as well, even before I went into entertainment. And I've always resonated with cognitive behavioral therapy. So I decided to get a certification for cognitive behavioral therapy life coaching so I could really go further. And that was for really my own understanding and being able to work with different CBT exercises on my life. And through that coaching, it allowed me to start tracking my own thoughts. Where were these thoughts coming from? What were the emotions that were being brought up? And though that was helpful, it also felt like something was missing. So I kept doing yoga and my regular meditations. Eventually, I started doing a teacher training at the studio that I was taking classes at. And through there, I got exposed to Reiki, which is a form of energy work, and sound therapy. And if I had been at a different point in my life, I would have ridden those things off. I would have been like, okay, that's just like some woo-woo stuff, placebo effect,
Right.
doesn't help.
Right.
And my yoga teacher, she was a Reiki master. She convinced me to just try a Reiki session. She's like, honestly, you're holding on to so much, it would probably be so beneficial for you. I'm like, okay, I'll just try this. Uh, and during that, I felt so much. I felt so much energy moving around my body. I felt like blockages were being removed from, my throat, from my heart. And I immediately sat up at the end of the session and she's like, how was that? I was like, I need to know everything about how this works. So, so then I took a training in that and got attuned to Reiki level 2 at that time. So as through that, I just started doing Reiki on myself. That's kind of part of Reiki level 1 is you need to do Reiki on yourself for at least 30 days before you can advance and train to the next level. as I was doing that, that's when I started to be able to pair. Okay, this is when I was working over my heart. I just let go of a lot of feelings of self-worth. Uh, and similar to sound therapy, once I got exposed to that through the same studio, I started teaching myself how to play. And I honestly credit sound healing as to why I was able to stop drinking so as quickly because we had access to the studio once we started teaching there, and the teacher gave us permission to go and use the studio when no one was in the space. I would go, instead of going out to drink or meeting up with friends to drink at bars, I would go to the studio and just start playing and record myself and play it back to me, learn what sounded good, try different techniques of playing. So I was rewriting my habits, which is a big thing with CBT. And I just kept working on all three of those components together. And before I even fully realized, it was apparent to everybody around me. And people would come up to me, my coworkers, and they would ask me like what I was doing that was changing my mood. So they're like, you're different. You're walking around, you're just happier. Like we just left a meeting where we got bad news on a project and you seemed completely unaffected. And that's when I knew that I had something because I could feel it in myself, but you know how it is when you're constantly working on yourself. You just know, like, incrementally, you're getting, a little bit more healed. You're moving forward, you're progressing, but you don't see it from like, you don't see the major difference when you're still in it and you're still doing the work. So because my friends, coworkers, everyone around me started mentioning it to me, I would tell them, I'm like, these are the things I'm doing, and they would be interested and want to learn more.
You're right.
So that's really how the neuroresonance method was created. It was out of my own necessity to want to heal, to want to change my life. And I found that there was a gap in traditional talk therapy that just wasn't clicking for me. And, if I'm one that it doesn't click for, I know that there are others out there who've tried it, who've had similar experiences. So I wanted to create something that not only covers the cognitive and the mental aspect, but also really gets down into the emotions and the energetic side of it. Because if you don't process that, it's living in your body rent free. So we need to find that and create a space for you to feel those things and move through it in a controlled way.
Yeah, and I think that that is probably the most powerful part of it, especially because, like you said, these traditional systems, or if you're in a traditional like system working system, you can still have both until
Hmm.
you kind of, usually it's the universe pushes you, or
Yes.
something dramatic happens, like my friend, and her husband fell off a roof last week,
Oh, geez.
and, there's been little hints, like winks from the universe, as I call them, that I've kind of said to her of like, of her saying, this or that. And I'm like, I just don't think he should be there. I think that you should really kind of tap into like how to guide him, or, like have a conversation with him, right? Like just kind of giving her some like tips and, like of like
Right.
what I see, but it's kind of like, I'm not really the one supposed to be saying it, but just giving her something that, and he even said, I didn't realize I had to fall off a roof and break my leg to realize I'm not supposed to be where I am. And it's like those, it's that, but that's, I feel like for all of us, like even people listening, they're like,
Hmm.
something dramatic has happened in their life. Same thing with you, like, and me too, all of us. I'm talking to everybody, that something dramatic has happened, and that's the universe, like, go this way. You can't,
It's, yes.
whatever the reason is that us humans cannot figure out, like, we know we're not supposed to be here, we're not supposed to be doing it, but like, we still do it, So it's like, the universe is like, go this way. And then you have to the point that like I had a very similar journey. I broke both ligaments in my foot and my broke both ankles. I couldn't walk.
How?
So it's like I had to go a different way, you know? Obviously from
Right.
healing and all that stuff, I still tried to go back to my job. That didn't work out too well, you know? And it was like, it's kind of like you just get so sick and tired of being sick and tired, pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
mentally and energetically. And I feel like a lot of people feel that pull right now, especially, you know, in their purpose of like leaving that, job that maybe is security, like security to them. So, like for you, like what did that transition really look like for you, like emotionally, mentally, energetically?
Oh gosh, like mentally, I checked out. Once I started to realize that I just wasn't fulfilled, I had so many conversations with about two specific coworkers because they felt similarly to me.
Mhm.
And one of them was a little bit younger than me, just by a few years, and another one was several years older than me, um, maybe even 2 decades older than me. I don't really know. Um, and he, we would confide in each other a lot because he worked in a different, he also worked with the production department, but in a different avenue of it. So we didn't see each other all the time. And when we did, we would always just take time to drop in. And I remember we would always have really deep conversations. And one of the things he would tell me was, don't let your work define you. And I was tired of hearing that one day, and I just looked at him. I was like, I think we both know that's too late for me. Like I've let my work define me. It is one of the things I lead with in conversations when I meet people. It like it is my life. So for me to be struggling where I am, like I am deciding if I need to walk away from this life that I've built. So at a certain point, mentally, I checked out. That's where the alcohol and cannabis came in, was to keep me numb.
Yeah.
Emotionally, I was already spent. I was drained. I didn't want to think about that. And physically, I felt trapped. I felt like I was just doing the same things. Wake up, go to work, go out to drink with people at work, talk shop a little bit, and then come back home and drink more, pass out, go eventually go to bed and wake up, do the whole thing again.
Right.
And there was one day where I just had enough of that cycle. I woke up. Um, I was also going through a breakup at that time where I just remember I woke up and started crying. And I was like, I don't want my life to be like this. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm just living the same thing. I want more freedom. I want to actually know that I'm helping people. And the job that I was doing, yes, I was providing entertainment for thousands of people and giving them, moments of happiness and joy. And who knows, maybe memories for a lifetime. You don't see that. And it's hard to connect with that sometimes, especially when you work on things that are overseas and you don't see the finished product all the time where people interacting with it. So in that moment where I was just crying, like I finished crying, I sent a text to one of my good friends and I was like, I'm done. I'm done feeling this way. I don't want to cry over my ex anymore. I don't want to, live in this lifestyle that I've created. So from that moment, it was really a question of, okay, what are the little things I can do in my day to day to start shifting my lifestyle, to transition into a life that I love. Because one, I'm a projector, so I know that I can't make huge, big changes right away. Like I can't do a, you know, 180 because that will just deplete me. It might be something I'm happy about, but I just, as an energetic being, I don't have the energy in my body to do that.
Right.
And so
What
it
type
started,
of, sorry, what I was gonna say, you just said projector. I'm like, okay, what type of projector are you?
I'm a 3-5, I believe.
Do you know your authority? Are you splenic?
Splendic.
Splenic?
Hmm.
Okay. I'm a 6-2 emotional projector. Yay!
Nice.
I like that.
I feel like projectors always find each other.
Yes, we do. Yes. And I was going to ask you, my next question was going to be like, do you know your human design? So you just like put it in there. You must have heard my telepathic message. I was like, I wonder if she knows her human design.
Oh, I do. Yeah, it's the martyr type projector,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which
Yeah,
which
I love
makes
that.
sense with all the workaholic tendencies that I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just started gradually shifting and I would do more yoga. I started getting into aerial yoga, aerial dance, and just allowed myself to. It was a struggle to leave the entertainment work in the office, and especially when you have a specific phone that the company gave you that they can reach you at any time on the phone. And I'm like, I would even tell my bosses, I'm like, when I'm leaving, my phone is going off. So, like, if you need me, you have to call my personal phone because I'm not gonna just be constantly looking at my work phone all the time.
Right.
Uh, and then that became a slow transition. I finished the projects that I was working on for entertainment, like, and once the last project ended, I just sat with myself. I'm like, okay, I think this is it, where I transition full time into the health and wellness world. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know my next steps, really. I don't have a plan. But the project ended a little bit sooner than what was projected. And I just took that as a sign. I'm like, okay, universe, you've got me. I'm here. I'm not even going to try looking for another gig. Like,
Yeah. I was gonna say, like in that, would you say like when you woke up that morning, would you say that that was like your defining moment of like I can't keep living like this? Would you say that that was probably at that moment?
mm-hmm. Because even like once I had sent that text, I was like, okay, we're done. And then I woke up that morning and I felt a refreshed energy around me. Like I knew there was going to be a long road ahead of me,
Sure.
but my energy already felt different. And I know that that's because I made that declaration,
Hmm.
not just to me, but I also put it out there and like had my friends, my friend hold me accountable. And I didn't cry over him at, my partner that I'd left after that. I didn't cry over where I was in my life. It's just like I sent that text, had my final cry, and let that be that, and just continue to allow myself to move forward, knowing that it was going to be hard, that it was going to be painful. And my best friend at the time was living cross country because I was in LA, she was in Florida.
Hmm.
So it was kind of scary because I'm like, I'm doing this on my own, alone. I lived alone. And that was completely necessary for that transitionary period in my life because I needed no judgment. I needed to be alone and really choose for myself without external influences where where to go, what I wanted to do. And so that was a very big pivotal moment in my life.
Yeah. Now, speaking back to that, when you kind of like look back on that now, um, was there like a pattern that kept showing up in your life, or Like if it was like these relationships that you were in, or did you notice maybe like I feel like most people focus on physical symptoms when it comes to health. Like for you, was it more of like an energetic pattern or emotional pattern that maybe showed up in your body and like over time impacted your well-being?
It was definitely more of an emotional and energetic pattern for me. And I also believe that that's why talk therapy didn't work for me because
Right.
you're not focusing on the emotions and the energy of it, right? So I have tendencies of people pleasing, or well, I used to, and I would take on a lot of responsibilities. I would also take on people relationships, whether it was romantic or work relationship, that felt more like a project where I'm like, oh, these people need me. I will go here, I will help them, I will fix them. And what that would do for me is I would exert all of my energy trying to help them make their project good, make their life better. And I would do all this work. And in the moment at the beginning of it all, it felt great because I could see that it was working, they were happy, and then the more successful I would get doing those things, I would start to resent them because that they were the focus of all of my energy, of all my mental thoughts. I was centering my life around them. Did they ask me to do that? Not necessarily, but that's what I did. So then I would start to get really bitter. I would be resentful. I would get angry. I'd start picking fights or just saying the very blunt truth on my mind, which in the corporate world does have its implications. So,
I can imagine.
yeah. So there were things like that that kept happening. And that's when I just had to take a step back and look at myself, my own thoughts. That's really what I was working on when I uh, restarted learning more into cognitive behavioral therapeutic exercises and techniques to use on myself. And through doing that, I realized that I was playing the victim in my life because anything that happened to me, if it was negative or not what I wanted, I would go, why is this happening to me? Why is this my luck? Like, really, why can't I catch a break? And I had that negative thought pattern where everything was just happening to me and I was the golden child. I wasn't doing anything wrong. That was my belief. And the deeper I got into CBT, I understood. I'm like, oh, I am the reason why all of this is happening because I'm expecting people to let me down. I'm expecting to be victimized in the workplace, in my relationship. I'm expecting myself, in a sense, to be the target for people. And so I started shifting that. And instead of asking the question, why is this happening to me? I was like, okay, well, what lesson is this teaching me? What am I meant to learn from this experience? And by doing that, I actually started learning the lessons. I was understanding, oh, I grew up in a home with addiction and mental health. And so it was easier for me to keep the peace and do what was needed to keep the peace at home rather than let it all fall apart. So that's just the role that I took on in life in all areas. So it was a process of learning that and then unlearning it.
Yeah. And if this episode is bringing something up for you, especially around relationships, people pleasing, overgiving, emotional triggers, or repeating the same patterns, I want you to grab my ebook. This ebook will help you start seeing the subconscious patterns that have been running your life, your relationships, and your reactions, so that you can finally release what no longer feels aligned. It's not about blaming yourself. It's about understanding yourself, regulating your nervous system, and choosing different from a place of self-trust. If you're ready to stop repeating the same cycles and come back home to yourself, grab my ebook. The link is below in the show notes. Yeah. I love this conversation too, because specifically because through my own experience and journey, you know, very similar to yours. I was trying to get like rid of my ego, and I didn't realize how like victimized I placed myself until again you kind of like look at yourself and be like, okay, what am I doing to attract this? Especially when I read that book, The Secret. I'm like, wait a second. Like, I'm like, this is all, I don't believe it. Like I do, I do know that like my entire life I had gifts, but I mean, they were suppressed obviously with trauma and suppression and like keep quiet and all of that stuff. But you're right. Like and we talk a lot about this on the podcast too, that I don't think people realize that like that victim, like story and like that part of your life is really powerful. Like you can't bypass that. And I think for me in the beginning, I was trying to bypass that, and like hearing you talk about yours, it's like and hearing other people talk about theirs, it's very similar but not, in a way that like that has to happen so you can see the other side of it. It's not like you can't. I'm seeing a lot of people trying to go around that right now, and it's like you can't. It's more of like go within and ask yourself the questions of like, even now I still ask, well, what lesson is that supposed to teach me? Because like, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm the same way. I will still ask myself, or if I get into a sticky situation, I'm
yeah,
like, okay, what am I learning here? Like, what are the lessons in this
yeah.
that I'm seeing? And I think I love that point about how you were bypassing that victim mentality at the beginning. I think that's very common. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't want to believe that they
Mhm.
are kind of the cause in a way by playing that victim role. And it's not like one day we decide to take it on. Like, today I'm going to wake up and play the victim, right? Nobody
Right.
declares that.
Right.
It's just a combination of things that we have faced in our life. And through suppression, some of us get real good at ignoring them, pretending they're not there.
Yeah.
But we hold on to that pattern in our head where everything's always, why me? Why this? Why is that person getting promoted? Why does that person have the shiny things that I want? Like,
Right. Yeah.
so it becomes a very raw experience and process to look at yourself and accept that you have been playing the victim. So that's where I see a lot of people come in with the work that I do.
Hmm.
And some of them might be at the beginning stages of acknowledging, oh, this is what I've been doing. And other times as we're going, I see that realization when we're working together in them, where they have come to the realization for themselves. We're like, oh, I've been blaming everyone around me and haven't been taking responsibility.
Yeah. I think that that's huge, especially in relationships, because like I always say that my drug of choice was codependent relationships. Like
Mm,
I still to this day remember my mom asking me the question of, why do you always pick bad guys? Why do you always pick these guys that like, say are so hurtful and mean, and, they abuse you and all this stuff? And I never really could answer that question. Like I didn't know. I probably told her, I don't know, and then like going through my own journey and like realizing that like they're just unemotional. Like they're not emotionally available. So again, I was like, oh, I'm the hero. I call it the drama triangle, but the trauma
Mm,
triangle of like, I wanted to play the hero and I wanted to obviously play the victim or the perpetrator at some point, like it was, I would always
right.
bounce around in this triangle. And I realized that's when I realized like you also can get out of that triangle of, just because somebody hurts you doesn't mean that you hurt them. Like if,
Right.
like, and I think that even now, it's hard to kind of look, you know, I feel like, I would love to hear your perspective too, but I feel like now it's hard to sometimes admit that like your own bullshit. And, it's like, oh, I'm half the problem here. And it's like now it's easier for me. I mean, now it's so much easier now because I can look at it like, okay, as an observer, what's going on? Why I feel like I still have conflict? Like, what's going on here that I can take responsibility for my piece and accountability and then accept the fact of like maybe that's how it's going to be, or if it's like reflected back to you in a relationship. And I often feel like, and I hear a lot of people say like, oh, I'm going to be single the rest of my life, and it's just like,
Hmm.
how are you going to grow? Like my question to them, not asking them, but I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, how are you going to ever grow? Like you don't
Right.
have that mirror looking back at you unless you do. Like if you're doing mirror work, that works too. But like physical people are the best lessons, I feel like, or they can be blessings or they can be lessons of like what I need to stop the pattern. A couple of my friends had recently came to me and said they'll tell me like, "Hey, I need your advice. This is what's happening. I'm attracting this person, that person." And my question to them is, "Why do you think you keep attracting the same person, the same pattern?"
Hmm.
It's going to keep happening until you get sick and tired of being sick and tired of attracting that same person. I say it in obviously a nicer way, but I feel like, it's all about patterns. It shows up in a different person, but it's the same pattern. And until
Right.
you learn that pattern or lesson, it will continue to show. And I don't think people believe me at first when I say that. And I'm like, well, okay. You can keep learning it. Trust me, I've learned it for 30 some years of my life. Like not 30, I wasn't dating at 1 years old, but like, what I mean? Like it
Right.
was like 20 years of my life that like I knew if it was a good person, I would run away because I'm like, I'm not hurting them. Subconsciously, I didn't know what I was doing. Oh, they're not my type or whatever. And subconsciously, I was like,
Yep.
because I would hurt them and I didn't want to hurt them. I wanted to keep chasing after these guys that I could fix. And then it was like, and to the point that I'm like, I need to just be by myself. I just need to be by myself. Like it just kind of happened like that. But from your perspective and your journey, would you agree that, these patterns and these lessons will continue to keep showing up and until you kind of do the work to kind of process it, or what emotion that they need to look at through healing, integrative healing especially.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that because you're not, it's almost like I don't like using the word test because then I feel like it's like a pass fail situation.
Yeah.
But I think the universe is giving you opportunities for you to assess how much growth you have done when a pattern comes back up. Because
Yeah.
you might think, okay, well, I worked through that in my last relationship. I'm good with that. I'm not taking on, the hurt victim role, right? I've relinquished that. And then you get in another relationship and maybe you start to feel that again or similar patterns start to play out.
Yeah.
And that's when you're like, oh, I thought I like worked through this, but I guess there's still more here, right? And also sometimes it is necessary uh, to have those traumas come up in a relationship. Not saying that it's a toxic relationship or that you need to run away from the first signs of being triggered in a relationship. In healthy relationships, both of you are still going to trigger each other. You're going to push each other's buttons, especially at the beginning of it, because that's when your nervous system is starting to feel safe with another person and you're learning how much emotions and past energy your body has stored from other relationships. So it's when a certain topic comes up, like say like you got cheated on in the past, and then you're in a new relationship, very positive one, very uplifting, and there's like they're not cheating, but your mind is now looking at the evidence of like, oh, well, they spent a lot of time with this person, and like this person has
Yeah.
admitted that they have a crush on them. And so, what, like, maybe there is, and that's when you can become aware of your own thought pattern. And it's like, okay, well, I could either run away and break off this thing, or I can call attention to it and really work through it with my partner of like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. Honestly, it's not coming from you. You have done nothing wrong. Here
Right.
is my past that's coming. So, like, please help me work through this. Like, this is what, like, these are the things I need in this to help do that, you know? Um, so even relationships are a great way to continue to work through trauma. And certain traumas and triggers aren't going to be hit until you're in another romantic relationship, right? And
Yeah.
I've had so many people as well tell me like, oh, I'm just going to be single because there isn't a person that matches me that, I can fully really trust. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, well, if you can't fully trust all of the people that you've been with, what in yourself are you not trusting?
Right. And that question in itself is triggering for somebody that won't look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've asked some simple questions like that, especially too because um I've been cheated on, but I also been the one that has cheated. So I do know
Same.
how it feels both ways. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying, sure, people are going to listen and be like, what the fuck, Lauren? I'm going to be like honest about, like my husband, he has been cheated on as well. He's never cheated though. So like I understand. I guess for me and what I needed to clear out karmic wise, I needed to figure out why I do it, why like, and it's mainly about I don't want to be alone. It was like that fear of always wanting to be alone. So it's like, oh, they cheated. But then it was also playing that victim of like, if you're going to cheat on me, I'm going to cheat on you. Like, what the hell is that? That literally did nothing. So I'm like, well, this isn't working. Like, that's not working because I'm still hurt and I'm still in this toxic relationship. And then it's like, oh, I'm part of this toxic relationship. So then when I realized that, I was like, if I take myself out of it, so I no longer am the problem, and then there's still the problem. Okay. So then you can see where it is, especially, and then like learning that through like my daughter's father. She's very grateful to have two. My husband has helped me raise her for like since she's like 2.5, but also
Oh.
being able to look at my ex-husband and like, stop pointing fingers at him too. I mean, like he has his own path, his own thing, all of that. But like I also was a problem in that marriage, so it's like I owned that. And then, he'll go on his own journey about that. But it's like understanding that, like when people ask the question of like they cheated on me, it's like, have you ever cheated on somebody else? It could be emotionally cheating. Maybe it's not
Mm-hmm.
physical cheating. Like, and I think emotional cheating is worse than actual physical cheating. Like in my perspective, I feel like, have you really been emotionally available. There's a whole bunch of different things you can ask yourself. But I think that that's really interesting that you brought that up because I think that that's a huge pattern, especially to my friends that have came to me actually the last couple weeks about, Lauren, I keep attracting these men. Like, what is it? And I'm like, well, how much shame do you have? But it's like they trust me enough to like for my guidance of like they know where I was. They know my past. They
Right.
know how,
Mm-hmm.
I accepted that and kind of move forward, not just for, dwelling on my past, but it's more of like it's just data. It's like, okay, I did do that. I can actually admit it. Most people, if they have, I mean, most people I would say, yes, I did that. But that's what I did. I needed to learn. But mainly it's because I needed to learn how when I asked myself, why did I have to do that? And it was I needed to learn how it felt. And is more of like, so
Mhm.
I would not continue that pattern. Because then the next question was, well, how does your husband know that you won't cheat on him? I said, because it's more about self-respect. I respect myself so much more now than to
Mhm.
ever do that again. And I think that that is like it's about self. And I feel like, and if people are like, they don't understand it from that level. If they, depending on how they, like what they've done in their healing of like, no, I would never do that again, because I respect myself more. And also it's like, I'm not hurting, I'm not, why would I try to hurt somebody else, So I think it's, but yeah, I 100%, we just had this conversation, me and my husband, like a month ago. I'm like, I agree that I trigger myself. And I used to, in the beginning of our relationship, 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I would blame him for everything. Stop triggering me. My butt, like push my buttons. You just do it, and it was more of like, no, like I need self-control. Like I need to
Mhm.
boundaries. And it's like, I could see that through all of that, I've learned better boundaries, just doing things like for myself versus again, people pleasing. And I think that that people pleasing probably comes in a lot. There's been a lot of lessons around business. Would you say too, it's kind of mirrored in your business as well as and your relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, cheating doesn't have to just be in a romantic relationship, right? You can cheat in
Yeah.
business on projects, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I have experienced cheating. Like I've been cheated on. I've also cheated on others. And it's similar to what you were saying. I was hurt. I was also taking on and being with partners who I felt didn't really truly see me or understand me as much as I tried to communicate where I was with them. It just never felt like I was heard. And so that's kind of where I was like, oh, this person is, seeing me. They're saying the things that I want my partner to be saying to me. Okay. And I also needed that to understand how it felt and to really draw awareness to how much I was truly hurting. Because
Yeah.
it wasn't until I really faced that. Because even after it was done and it ended, I was just like, I'm going to shove that in a box and pretend that that never happened.
Yeah.
And the more that I started digging into my yoga practice, the more I was like, okay, this is coming up. These emotions are coming up. I have to face this. I have to pull the box out, put it in the center of my view for a moment, dust it off, open it up, and shine the flashlight in there until there's nothing left to look at. And that was something that like would kind of come up in business for me because after there was a point where I left the big corporation that I was working with and went
Hmm.
freelance and created my own business. So that was fun for a while because I could take on all these projects and no one could tell me no because I was like, I don't have a non-compete with myself. I'm gonna work with all these places. And then I got hired I was being interviewed by uh, my main company's competitor because even though I wasn't working with the studio that I had been working for directly, they did end up hiring me as a contractor on a different project after I had been freelance for a little bit. So they're like, okay, we'll just hire you as a contractor. I'm like, cool, it's a great setup. While I was working on that, one of their competitors was pursuing me for a project overseas. And I'm like, ooh, this is a good opportunity. Oh, do I tell him? Do I not tell him? Do I do it? Do I just tell one of the companies and not the other? I'm like, they might have non-competes against each other. I don't know. And then that's like gray area for me. So in I did. I was like, okay, this is another pattern because I had already come to terms with my pattern and habit, not habit, but my experiences cheating in the relationship. So when this one showed up in business, I was like, how am I going to feel if I don't say anything? I'm like, I'm not going to feel great. I'm going to feel like I'm hiding something, and I don't want to do that. So
Right.
in the first interview that I had with the competitor company, I told them, I was like, yes, I'm freelance. And also, you should know that I'm working for this company. This is the work that I'm doing. So it's not on like an attraction. So I don't know if that changes things. But like, if that's a non-negotiable for working there, like, I'm not saying I don't want this position, but I want to be transparent.
Yeah.
And they respected that. They were fine with it. They're like, we're okay with it as long as when the time comes for you to go overseas, you actually go overseas. And I was like, okay, can do that. And then I talked to the other company, my primary company at that time, and told them, and they were like, they weren't super happy about it. Uh, I think they were honestly a little bit jealous that I had gotten that and they couldn't provide that to me. So they understood. They're like, well, it's a great experience. You should do it. And they're like, as long as that doesn't affect the work that you do for us. And I'm like, it shouldn't. Like, obviously, when I go overseas, like, I have to be primarily focused. But at that time, when that happens, this project should be, mostly wrapping up. So that was like a fun opportunity to exercise that and really let myself work through it. And I also haven't had any issues of even wanting to cheat in any previous or current relationship that I'm in. It's like, okay, I'm choosing people differently now. I'm acting
Right.
from a space where I am coming from it from a more healed perspective.
Yeah. And I love that example that you give about the companies because I personally went through something really like traumatic last year at the end of last August. Was it August? And also I knew it was coming. It's like I knew it. It was like I knew and I was like, "Oh, here it comes." And I just knew
Mm,
that I'm like, "Oh, this is a pattern and lesson of cheating like you said in business." Not from my perspective, but from how it made me feel. And so many, and I didn't want to talk about it. And then I think on a podcast episode, I briefly talked about it. And then like I would talk about it in like my private containers and stuff of like, what I processed, what was going on, what was like happening. And I just say it so nonchalantly now, but like I see exactly how and what maybe I needed to learn one more lesson around it. But then when I speak it, like sharing that with other people and the awareness that it gives other people to the permission, I should say, to talk about it too. And I think that's really powerful. And specifically, it's when the collapse of the like narcissism started happening in
hmm
the spiritual world. And somebody that I was basically working with had took my entire program and started selling it as her own. And then when
Oh,
that was sold to me, I'm like, oh my goodness, hold up, wait a minute. Like, and it was kind of like that moment I could have acted like a victim. I could have, you did all of the things online and, like not go inward and all of the things. And I think that from that, when I'm speaking about that, there's so many other people also that went through that. And it's like, I feel like too, there's a lot of collective things that I'm sure that you have gone through to help the collective heal as well. Like going through all of that is kind of like what I've noticed, especially last year. You know, because I think that
yeah.
because I think that many people are now more than ever, especially when we're recording this in March, like feeling overwhelmed or anxious or disconnected with themselves. What are like some like simple ways that people could begin to like regulate their nervous system and like reconnect with their emotional body?
Well, one of the first things I say, which is kind of ironic because I always hated this advice when it was told to me, is to really go back to your breath, right? I would hate it when I'd be stressing out or venting and people would go, just breathe. And I'm like, yeah, it's automatic. I don't need to think about it. I'm breathing. Like, I'm stressing out. Please don't tell me to do something my body just does naturally. But that is also how disconnected I was.
Right.
So, taking a time to do some intentional breaths can be a very crucial practice to get you from reacting into responding, right? Because when we start to get stressed, our cortisol rises, we feel our body get hot, some of us even sweat, we feel anxious, and that's us moving into the sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight response. So it's just trying to keep us alive. Like we're just looking for survival tactics at that point. So when you're in a heated debate or conflict or argument, you can get really defensive and say some pretty mean stuff or some pretty hurtful things. So instead of doing that, give yourself a break. Like, I would often, when I first started doing this, I would go into another room and just sit somewhere, put my hand on my heart, close my eyes, and really take a few deep breaths. Just fill up my lungs and a long exhale. Because if you exhale longer than you inhale, it's like a cheat code to get your nervous system to regulate a little bit faster. And through that, I would then ask myself, okay, how do I want to respond? Like, this person is coming at me with, their hurt, their wounds. I don't need to pile on. So, how can we work through this? How do I want to respond? So, that was and still is a good tactic for myself. That's what a lot of my clients will do at the beginning while we start working together. So, I always recommend that to people. And then another question is, what brings you joy? Like, what is just one thing that you can do that you know you enjoy? And maybe you don't have anything in this moment that you enjoy. And you're like, well, Kathryn, nothing right now brings me joy. Okay, what did you do as a kid that just like without fail, when you were younger, what did you do that just made you smile, made you feel you know, at ease. Maybe that's color. Maybe that's getting a coloring book and just letting yourself dive deep into coloring. Or maybe it's dancing or running outside, jumping in puddles. Like, great. Let yourself go take a walk in the eyes of your younger child. Go run in nature, hug a tree, jump in, streams as you find them. Just let yourself invite more of that playful energy into your life because that is a great way for your body and your nervous system to understand that it's in a safe space, that it doesn't have to be on guard. So you're slowly breaking down the walls to enter the parasympathetic nervous system, that calm, that relaxation.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. So, where can everybody find you? Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yes, so you can find me on my website, Eipl Healing, EIPL healing.com. You can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook under the handle Eipl Healing, EIPL Healing. And yeah, those are all the places you can find me. If you go to my website, I have a little promotion that I'm running where if you sign up for my email list, you'll get an email with instructions on how to claim a free neuroresonance method strategy session. So that's the beginning session of the neuroresonance method where we really take a look at where you are and then what your goals are. Where do you want to go? How do you want to feel? And we'll create little like a little guide map and create tricks that are unique to you that you can start doing to start moving towards your goal and move out of the current place that you're at right now.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the Enlightened Misfits podcast and sharing your journey and wisdom and the work that you bring into this world. And thank you for all that you do for the world as well. And if this conversation resonated with you, make sure you check out all of her links. Like if you're watching this over on YouTube, they'll be below in the description box, or if you're just listening to it, they'll be below in the show notes. And make sure, I will remind you guys each time to make sure you're subscribed, leave a review, and share this with episode with somebody that you feel that would gain knowledge from listening, because this helps us bring more amazing guests on like Kathryn. And if you know somebody that is maybe wants to do life or business different and aligned with their human design, maybe regulate their nervous system, or all three, build a business that supports their life that they truly want, I invite them inside my Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood. And this community is for spiritual entrepreneurs, leaders, and visionaries and healers, whatever you call yourself, who are stepping into deeper alignment impact. The link below will also be in the show notes. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next week. If today's episode spoke to you and you're ready to rise with support, I'd love to invite you in to the Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood, a sacred community for spiritual entrepreneurs to heal, grow, and lead with purpose. You can join us by using the link below in the show notes, or connecting with me over on Facebook or Instagram at The Mermaid Light. If you loved today's episode, subscribe, share, and leave a review. This helps support us reach more women who are ready to rise. Remember, your journey isn't about fitting in. It's about embracing the truth of who you are. Until next time, stay inspired, stay aligned, and keep creating your extraordinary path. This is Lauren, and you've been listening to the Enlightened Misfits podcast.